So I went outside and sat by myself on one of the concrete benches. A cold, wet wind blew straight off the gypsy field, slapping my face with its clammy hands. It was called the gypsy field because gypsies sometimes camped there, but they hadn't been around for ages. Maybe 2 years. Perhaps there weren't any gypsies left. Just the cold wind blowing over the grass and picking up the stink from the brown water of the beck. I wish I'd gone to fetch my parka from the cloakroom, but I didn't want to bump into Mr. Boyle. So I pulled up the collar on my school blazer and tried to sit on the tail of it. But it wasn't quite big enough, and so the bench was doing a good job of freezing my arse solid. I would have moved to keep warm, but I didn't have anywhere to go. The boys I usually hung around with were playing football, but I didn't feel like it. And anyway, no one had asked me. For a second, I thought about joining the kids at chess club just to keep warm. And maybe it would have been nice to have someone to talk to. Except they'd all be nerds talking about nerd stuff. Oh, and did you see that really good, documentary, about volcanoes, I have the latest copy, what sort of hard drive do you, what kind of soup? And I don't really know how to play chess. I mean, I know how the pieces move, but I never actually played a game. So I didn't know how to string it all together, how to make sure you didn't get mated in 2 moves, that sort of thing. I tried listening to the kids playing to see if I could single out voices from the general background noise. There were loud shouts of "Pass! Pass!" from footballers. I could hear the high screams from Year 7 kids who looked small, even to me. I don't even know what game they were playing, some kind of tag. Stupid. The girls were all standing about in little groups, and I couldn't hear any noise from them at all, but I could see that some were happy, some were sad, and some had a look of fury on their faces, as if they just found out that someone had been calling them sluts or something behind their backs. The only group where boys and girls were together was the freaks. Maybe 6 of them. They were on the other side of the playground. Some were standing, some were sitting on a bench. Even though everyone was supposed to wear a uniform, they still looked different, as if they were standing in the shadows, while we were all in a harsh light. And somehow you could sense the bad feelings being beamed at them. Mostly it was just that, feelings, a sense that all the other kids in the playground would rather they weren't there. And sometimes it was more than that, like now, when one of the kids playing football deliberately blasted the ball at the group, hitting a girl in the face. Why does everyone hate the freaks? Well, not everyone. The freaks don't hate the freaks. Actually, even that might not be true. One of the things about them is that they hate themselves. But they don't hate all the freaks, just the individual freak that happens to be them. I know I shouldn't call them the freaks, although everyone does. There are other names. You could call them emo. I might even call them indie or alternative or scene. But indie and alternative and scene make them sound too cool, too in. They weren't on the inside of anything except maybe themselves. So emo is probably closer than scene or indie. But freak seems to fit them best of all. Just being hated by everyone would probably be okay for the freaks. In fact, that might be their choice. But they weren't just hated, not in our school anyway. Our school was the kind of school where being hated was only the beginning of things, like with the football blasted into the face of the girl. The kids who aren't freaks, the freak haters, if you like, come in different flavors. Some are punks, some chavs, some straights, some death metal kids, some glue sniffers, some nerds, and then some who you don't know what they are, and many of them might have a go at a freak. The worst are probably the chavs, who seem to take the quiet looking down way that the freaks had as a direct insult. No, what am I saying? The chavs aren't the worst. The worst are the droogs, the kids who live to hurt you and take your money. And to them, the freaks are like cattle, to be milked and then slaughtered. The girl who got hit by a ball, I knew her name was Maddie Bray. She was the only one of them who was in any of my classes. She was standing on the outside of the group of outsiders. It was funny, but when the ball hit her, she didn't move closer to her friends, but further away, and as if she knew that it was somehow her fault, or at least that it was embarrassing. And it was exactly what I'd have done, moving away, trying to disappear. I watched them for a while. Then I saw one of the boys who'd been sitting down stand up and go over to talk to her. I knew his name, too. His name was Shane, and I knew it because he was sort of the leader of the freaks. The leader doesn't really get it right, because he didn't tell them what to do or anything. It was more that he was the best at being a freak. He was what they were all aiming at, and even if you hated them and all they stood for, you still had to admit that there was something special about Shane. Something cool. So, maybe I should call the freaks Shane's gang, because that's what they were. Shane smiled, and he must have said something funny as well, because Maddie Bray smiled back and nearly laughed. And then she edged a bit closer to the rest of them. But she stood on the outside, a watcher, like me.